Love and light, everyone. Thank you for being here today and sharing my messages. I've been in practice for over 30 years working with altered states of consciousness, and my resume is on my websites. With this film, I'm going to briefly explain to you the way I work and what I've learned through my journey working with hundreds of clients and spirits, because sometimes spirits need help as well. I'm going to talk about lucid dreaming and astral projection, and what I've learned and how I use out of the body experiences. I would recommend, before continuing with this film, that you watch my film from this series regarding our three bodies called the spiritual, etheric and material bodies. We have the material body, the etheric body, and the spiritual body. The process of leaving our body is a natural process, which is inhibited by our fixations from our earthbound existence. The metaphysical scientific processes of astral projection are not complicated to understand. It's a physical and mental conscious application for detachment conditions which can easily become restrictive. It's like a pool of water with ripples, which can become settled and peaceful and may become the reflection from the mirror of ourselves and open portals. There are two types of astral projection. One, we can project using our spiritual body. Two, or we can project using our spiritual and etheric body. Again, my film, The Spiritual, Etheric and Material Bodies, will explain more about our three bodies. Our etheric body consists of a fine material substance, just like a sponge holding the water of our spiritual body. The etheric body may project consciously or unconsciously, and it may project also on its own, in which case the host is most likely to be unaware of the displacement. The host would be likely to be in a state of dissociation through relaxation or trance, what we often call daydreaming. What's the difference between projection within our etheric and spiritual body together and our spiritual body singular? With your etheric body being of a material substance, your consciousness, when projected, is a similar experience to our earthly material body. You are able to travel around within materiality, within the world. You can pass through walls, which will feel a bit spongy. You may travel at the speed of thought. You can fly like a bird. You can stand still in one location. You can be present at an individual's passing over. But beware, as most people who pass over are still alive in their etheric and spiritual bodies. They're fully conscious and often confused. It takes 3 days for our etheric body to dissipate after death. For instance, someone who has died in a motor accident may be shouting at you to phone for help, and they're likely to be agitated or annoyed at your lack of compliance within such tragic circumstances. To them, they're still alive. They don't understand that they've died and passed over. As previously mentioned, unconscious projection, displacement, of our etheric body, singular, can occur when an individual is relaxing or under a state of trance. This means that in specific conditions, a person or animal may be seen in a different location than where their physical body is situated. Doppelganger, double or ghost shadow. Emile Segui, 1845. She was 32 years old. She was a French teacher who was moved to 19 different teaching positions in 16 years. Emile's double etheric body was regularly seen by her students, and on one occasion she was standing in the garden outside the classroom, while at the same time she was seen standing in her own classroom. In his book Journeys Out of the Body, Robert Monroe explains how he would naturally project from his physical body. To the extent of this experience being so regular, he describes his experiences as often being boring. Some people are born with a natural ability to experience metaphysical phenomena. Leslie Flint, in his book Voices in the Dark, tells the story of how he was an ordinary working guy who was coerced into going to a spiritualist circle and participating in a seance. He thought he had fallen asleep and awoke, and he was apologising for what he thought was his ignorant behaviour, not realising that he was being used as a physical medium and that spirits had been talking through him. Yes, spirits can attach to us and use our etheric body, the medium in such cases being our physical body, which the intruder uses to experience their own desired physical fixations. But more about spirit attachments and possession in my next film. I use astral projection through lucid dreaming for my work with clients, during which I do scans and walk-ins, being external and internal, which I will explain to you in a minute. Firstly, I'll explain more about etheric projection or displacement. The first time I experienced etheric projection, I was a teenager and was going through a very stressful time in my life. I was literally homeless, jobless. I was sleeping on a friend's settee, and whilst I was sleeping, I felt a very strong swaying motion as if falling over. I had a strong feeling of nausea. Suddenly I found myself floating in the top of the room. I was above the settee. The experience was of an overwhelming clarity. Everything was, if anything, more clear and defined than when in my waking self. The room was filled with light, even though it was dark. The feeling was of an overwhelming excitement. I knew I was out of my body, but my emotional excitement brought me back into my body. I had another experience exactly the same about 5 years later. Once again, I was homeless with no job or attachments in life. I found myself floating in the top of the room. This time I began to will myself forwards towards the wall. I began to pass through the wall, which felt spongy. I was shocked by this feeling, and my emotion returned me to my physical body. This was and is, from my experience, the second hurdle to overcome: emotion. The first hurdle being the transition from our material body. For myself, the determining factors for release from the physical body are a detachment from life's fixations, being in the moment with no attachments or objectives other than how to get through the next day. Possibly being despondent, a sad kind of earthing, was also a determining factor for my own automatic etheric projection. If you have time, please see my other film, Time Displacement. I do believe that this is why mystics and even Jesus went into solitude. Sensory deprivation is a major determining factor for displacement. So when we project in our etheric body, our spirit is confined to the material etheric substance known as ectoplasm. It's this substance which attaching spirits can use to cause effects from knocking or scratching. The latter is not the same as poltergeist activity, which is psychosomatic from an individual's disturbed psyche. When we project in our spirit body, there's a lot more freedom to move around the astral plane. The same primary principles exist as with etheric projection. The less stress and anxiety levels you feel, then the more chance you have of astral projection. Our transition into sleep takes us into the spiritual dimension. Time is different within this other realm, a world. 30 minutes sleep may seem like a few minutes in the spirit world. The closer we are to the earthbound dimension, then the more compressed time becomes. Again, please see my film, Time Displacement, if you have time. Time stops as we pass deeper into the spirit world. No time or space, just like your mobile phone. The other side of the world is there instantaneously. Before we continue, I'll just mention an important issue which for myself has been verified. Many practitioners, psychologists, and even spirit release therapists, including authors of books regarding lucid dreaming or astral projection, do not accept the spiritual realm's existence. They give reference to all paranormal phenomena as being manufactured from our own mind. Well, I also have a university degree in psychology and counselling, so please listen carefully to the following. Many times I've been requested to perform a clearing at a specific location. On one occasion I was asked to do a clearance at an old cottage within the client's grounds. I had no prior knowledge of the property or the occupants as my visit was in person. Sometimes I perform a scan before visiting the location to gain an insight into what I am working with. Through lucid dreaming into projection, I found myself inside the cottage. I'm standing in the cottage with the front door behind me. There are open wooden stairs to my right, a few feet away. And a room is on each side of the stairs. I go up the stairs and there's a large room which has a few bland furnishings. I come back down the stairs and am facing the front door. I feel a presence behind me. I turn around to find myself facing an elderly lady and her son. And they're standing by a large fireplace. I often know such information psychically. The mother and son were angry and viewed me as an intruder in their home. Validation. When I visited the property, I walked into the cottage and it was exactly as I had seen during my projection. I went up the same staircase, I looked at the same top room, I came down the stairs, I turned to face the same fireplace where the two people had been previously standing. I performed the clearing, guiding the mother and her son into the light. The latter has happened many times without my having any prior knowledge or ever having visited the location before. So, if the dream world is manufactured from our own minds, then how can my own mind have seen and visited a property I've never seen before? More validation can be found with clients I've worked with and guided into spirit. They've conversed with spirit and been given information which they were searching for and had no prior knowledge of. The spirit world and spirit release will be covered more in other films. Lucid dreaming, the Akashic records. Everything is recorded on our Creator's memory stick and can be seen if you are relaxed enough to move into the world of dreams. Taking into consideration that 40% of people in the UK are being prescribed medication for anxiety-related conditions. When dreaming, you are most likely to be in our earthbound dimension here. Like attracts like, and you may find yourself living through the videos of the Akashic memory stick. Also in this earthbound zone, our spirits, which are earthbound, confused, lost, or maybe simply looking for a suitable host so as to feed their fixations. Scans and walk-ins. With the following information, I'm going to explain how I work with clients. I do not recommend you to attempt the following procedures as they can be extremely dangerous. First of all, security is important. Divinity. The light is our protection, especially in moving into places where evil and its constituents reside. By divinity, I mean being in the light of God. I don't mean going to church weekly and then condemning people of a different denomination or even atheists. Divinity is from the heart. For myself, my work is with God, Jesus and the 4 archangels. And I don't fight evil. To fight or to be aggressive is to respond and facilitate the contamination. It's about deflecting the blows from evil, not attacking and fighting, as God's matrix controls karmic responses, not ourselves. If you work within this team of light, you will be protected. But remember, this work is not about ego. It's like the little guy who's a police cadet. He walks past a gang of violent drug dealers, but because he's wearing a uniform of the law, the group of criminals may spit and snarl, but he's not attacked. Because if he is attacked, there is an almighty force behind him. Always remember, you are working within the karmic laws of our Creator. Karmic laws which can be very severe, and you may not be allowed to breach. A similar could be a person who comes to you for help. The individual is extremely upset and reflects on their mistakes. They tell you how they've been a drug addict for several years. They explain how they are now a changed person and regret the wrongs they perpetrated, being crimes such as burglary. You may help the person with their rehabilitation and even offer social enterprises for the future. But if they are facing criminal proceedings, which may involve a long prison sentence, you cannot change this karmic transgression. You don't have a magic wand. I remember working with a client, releasing a group of spirits from her. She had admitted to invoking the possessing spirits for personal advantages. When they were leaving, there was a demonic presence threatening them. If they attempted to leave, it was going to throw a spear at them. Often people construct their own problematic situations and need to pay for their mistakes, karma. Another person, as far as I have experienced, cannot simply wipe away the sins with a simple confession and a few prayers. After working with divinity is confirmed, you should be ready for the next condition, a condition of relaxation with no anxiety or stress. If I'm experiencing any stress or anxiety, the pool of reflection will not settle. I need to be in an altered state of consciousness, deeply relaxed within a peaceful space, which is also protected by prayer. Prayer and visualization are important. I awake in the early hours of the morning, and whilst half awake, I say my prayers and keep in mind my objectives, which are to help the person suffering, within the light and guidance of my guides and masters. I have formed a link with the client previously through emails and a 1-hour phone session. I ask for a photo from the individual and photos of the location they occupy. The visual images and our relationship are paramount to the success of the scan. I move into sleep, holding the client's information in my mind. I then find myself in their location, passively observing their environment. The following is a walk-in example. I'm conscious and aware of the surroundings and everything's perfectly clear. Sometimes I find myself inside a relevant spirit, and sometimes a spirit from the location will move into myself. A walk-in external example. For a person whose partner has passed over, I find myself in a hospital. The client's wife is with him. I find myself move inside his partner. I must explain that these events are happening independently of my own conscious choice. I don't decide to walk into another spirit. It's as if I'm guided. When inside the spirit, then I experience all their feelings as if it is myself. I see and feel their pain. I see their private room, the toilet. I see the partner and feel their longing to be back in their own home. This is a communication between myself and the spirit, which is not verbal. After such a scan, it's time for them both to let go. A later session of spirit release will usually allow the confused spirit to move on into the light. Unfortunately, a client sometimes refuses to let their loved one pass over, and I've even had a client contact me several weeks after a successful spirit release and apologetically announce their reinstatement of their deceased loved one. A walk-in internal example. The client had been attending mediumship classes at a local spiritualist church and began seeing a threatening male spirit in her home. Upon scanning her property, I came into contact with a large man. The man was Russian and very aggressive. The spirit walked into myself. I immediately saw and felt his feelings. He was originally from the Russian salt mines and had participated in cannibalism. At this stage of projection, I can see his past as if it was in my own memory. He was a nasty, arrogant individual. I immediately returned to the security of my home, taking the spirit within myself. I awoke in my bed and the spirit of the Russian jumped from me. And he was standing facing me by my bed. At this time, I'm wide awake, conscious, and I can see him. He dived at me and I felt him hit me, but he immediately disappeared, leaving me with a sore jaw for several days. The latter is why divinity carries so much importance for protection. The spirit had left the client's home. Fortunately, the latter is a very rare occurrence. When I am projecting into the spirit world, it's as real as being in my material body in my daily life. On one occasion, I was at the top of a ladder and it felt as if I might fall. I remembered having a dream previously with the same feeling. And while I was experiencing the dream, I actually thought to myself, I've had a dream about this. The dream was so lucid that I thought it was real. I move around this other dimension and I am usually passively occupied in situations with other spirits. My awareness is real, but if I realise I am in the dream, or spirit dimension, I return back to my physical body. The only time I have control is when I take myself to a specific location doing healing work. Just to clarify the external and internal walk-ins. An external walk-in is when I move into a spirit and become part of its psyche. I see and feel everything as if I am this person. The external walk-in I use with passive, confused or lost spirits. I use this to give myself and themselves an understanding, a diagnosis, a scan with the intention of healing. An internal walk-in. An internal walk-in is when a spirit person moves into myself. The spirit is usually attempting to possess and initiate control. I take the spirit away from the host and then they are removed from myself, away from the previous victim. But always understand that you cannot interfere with karma. Walk-ins are very dangerous and it's not myself which has some power, but a connection with divinity which offers guidance, love, light and protection.